welcome back to another episode of
Hi.
Rush Hour to Infinity.
And we're both wearing matching sweaters.
We're like the granny spies, granny cops.
Yes, it's cold today and it's raining. So, at least in New Jersey.
It's kind of raining.
I don't know about your weather.
In Toronto today, we're also -1 to -3, something like that. So what did we watch this week?
We watched V for Vendetta. And yeah, so basically the movie starts off in a dystopian London, and I think it's like 2050 or something around that time. And basically London has fallen into a dictatorship post pandemic, post terrorist attacks. United States is in the trash and trenches, and basically all the citizens of London have given up their power to this high chancellor. In the midst of all this stuff happening, someone decides to take charge of what's going on, and that's our main character V, who's considered a terrorist by the government, but salvation for all the citizens. Basically what happens for the people. And basically what happens is that V takes the identity of the character Guy Fawkes, who was a real person, and tries to wake people up to the corruption of the government. Alongside his is Evey Hammond, who has been affected by the stuff that was happening in the government but kind of shut it out, and V kind of awakens her. And it's basically the movie basically talks about the fear that the government can instill and the power that they get from that, and how you can break out of all of that good stuff.
So today we're basically talking about the power of fear in politics and how that is, I guess, represented in the movie, and if we can see any parallels in our real lives. Can you, Vicky? Can you?
Me? No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Pandemic? Dystopia?
Pandemic?
Dictatorship? What?
Democracy collapsing? What even is it?
I don't know. This is such a fictional story. I couldn't even relate it to the real world, honestly.
Yeah. So why did you want to make me watch it? Because I've heard of it. It's like a cult movie, right? Everybody knows it. And even like the mask itself, kind of, it's like nowadays everybody knows it. So tell me.
So, I mean, I love dystopian movies and novels, and this movie, when it first came out, I think I watched it on MTV while I was babysitting.
MTV plays that.
Yeah, it was so weird. And so at that point, I was kind of learning about philosophy, learning about the nonconformity of philosophers at the time, transcendentalism, and all these different figures. And so when I watched this movie, I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, nonconformity, breaking out against the system and all this good stuff. I mean, as a 15-year-old and as a 26-year-old, I'm full of angst. So I wanted to share that angsty feeling and see how you took in the movie, especially with what's happening in society today, but just in general, what you thought. So what are your first impressions, Linda? Be careful, they're listening.
It was great. I mean, it was horrible.
It was horrible.
What did I think? I didn't expect it to be such a good movie, especially it's like an older movie too. I don't know. And it was beyond my first, what is it? Like the idea that I have of it. And it had multiple layers of the story. There was like a little love story too, and then with politics and philosophy, like ideas,
and the fighting scenes.
And there's like fighting scenes, and they're not just like, nowadays, like not just like pew pew with like the explosions.
And what I like is the long tracking of the scenes. It doesn't cut off too much, so you see the hits and they're kind of interestingly done.
And like the characters are all very different. Like they're not typical like a type, and you see them actually evolve through the story, which is super interesting. Like, well done.
Oh, and this movie is based off of a graphic novel that neither of us have read. So yeah, I've been trying to get it, but I have a bunch of other books that I need to read.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
we'll see.
Okay. I guess I have to like Google it. We'll put a picture up
Mm,
on what it looks like. Oh my god,
cute.
I'm gonna sneeze. Or not.
Don't do it. It can be edited out.
Okay. What were we talking about? We were talking about the power of fear in politics and how much.
Mhm.
Okay, so how do we start
And
this?
your first impression. So basically, we wanted to talk about um, the slippery slope of elections and in democracies, the power of fear in politics, dystopian novels, and how that all comes together and sort of relate it to our world as well. So I think the first thing we wanted to talk about was how much power do we as citizens have
Hmm.
in a democratic society or even in the movie, because it felt like the all the people were kind of just taking in what the government was doing. Even characters like Evie, whose family had ended up being murdered and kidnapped and tortured. Her younger brother was killed through because of the pandemic. Well, not killed. He died because he got sick from the pandemic that was created by the government.
Mhm.
Um, she ends up working for the media, and her power comes in only when she meets V. But there's also that one part where she kind of attacks the police officer who's about to shoot V. Do you remember that? So there's like those little moments where you can choose to go against the grain or be part of the grain. And I don't know, I feel like
So
I
it's
don't know if we have power.
so it's interesting because in their world, it's like you see the aftermath of like democracy is like it's slowly. I guess at that time it's already disintegrated, and it's like very well established at that time that
Hmm,
like
this is a dictatorship.
is it a dictatorship? Do they outright say it, or do they kind of like mask it?
I think they mask it, but you can tell that there's the
There's
what
like
is it? The curfew,
yeah, it starts
the
with a
people that
curfew.
walk around,
Mm.
the fingermen.
That's a
Um,
creepy name.
I know. And then all there's like you can also see like the big screen. There's like that one scene that very much channels like Hitler and all those things where he's like yelling and the
Yeah,
people, you know,
with the
that
flag in the
sort of
back and
scenery.
everything.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So I think it is very much established that it's a dictatorship because most people, it seems like they were able to get rid of the dissidents and the
Hmm.
people that were not part of the chancellor's like idea of the perfect people, because I feel like in the movie you don't even see people of color.
No, and like basically it was like a whole chain of events that caused Britain to fall into a dictatorship, right? So there was like
Exactly.
first of all there was like this
There was
wait, what
some
was
water. There was the
water?
water that was contaminated.
Yeah.
There was the school where
Was it a virus?
a virus broke out, and then it was also an election year. So
Okay.
everything that happened kind of happened all together to make people feel very overwhelmed
Hmm.
and sort of make a decision for what they thought would be best.
And did it also happen that the states were having problems of their own?
Yeah, there was a civil war in the States, which is kind of effed up when you think about it. But anyway,
Predicting the future or kind of talking about the past and the future. It's like all colliding at once. So it's kind of
exactly.
like politics taking advantage of a series of events, which later on we find out that are all interconnected, right?
And caused by the government or the people that started coming into power.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So I don't know how much control as citizens we have, like because we're blinded to each event, right? So that's how, and that is like played out in V for Vendetta when you see people at home kind of just watching TV because that's their only news source. And for us now,
Mhm,
it's like we see, I guess for us, it's the equivalent of a phone, the internet, or any news
mhm.
channels that we see. But I guess,
I think what I guess it's so like to take from that, you see how everyone kind of like just sponges in everything that's happening based on like the media that's literally controlled by the chancellor, who's like the next story? How are we spinning this? How are we turning this to make the people believe that this guy's a terrorist? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I feel like at a certain point, the people become so passive that they just take in the information, even if they don't like it.
Yeah. And that's
Because what are
why
you going to do?
so that's why this V character that really disrupt the media, because
Mm,
it was the media that's the only channel between the government and the people, and they were able to censor everything.
mm.
And that's like I wouldn't want. Would you compare this to like Trump kind of telling everybody that news is fake, and he's like trying to like discredit media? Would that kind of relate to real life?
I feel like, in a sense, because what you see now is his word becomes law in
Mhm,
terms of, so what happened, so for example, there's during the election that just passed, there was they were starting to call the states and who had won the state, and Fox News had always been on Trump's side,
mm,
and a place that he would do interviews with and like talk to them and things like that. And what
mm,
happened is that they called Arizona early and
mhm,
gave it to Biden. And all of a sudden, Fox News was fake news. He didn't trust them anymore. He told people not to listen to them. And people were like, yeah, all that fake news. And it's just like, you've been listening to them for the past 4 years. And all of a sudden, they don't say what exact, like the exact thing that you want. And now
uh-huh,
it's fake. So I think there's they don't it doesn't have that middle person
mhm,
to kind of change his words for him to make them sound more palatable to the people, because he can just say it now. He can
yeah.
tweet it, he can say it on TV and no one says anything to him. So it's just like
It's a different
he doesn't
kind
even
of
need the middleman.
yeah, because now we're living obviously in a different era where our technology is
Mm,
different, but the idea is kind of the same.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so how the movie itself broke from that kind of monopolizing of like the media by like dictatorship government is V, the parents of V hacking into their system, or basically kind of running into their building and
Into the one station
into
and
that
one
one
channel
state.
that goes to everywhere,
Yeah.
which I was like, guys, really? Come on. You have one channel that you never thought anyone would hack. Come on.
And that
The
was connected
emergency
to
channel.
everybody.
Exactly.
So the
And I
idea,
thought that was
sorry.
go.
So
No,
the
go.
idea that was repeated a lot in the movie is that it's not about the man, it's about the idea. What do you think?
So I think I think what V was trying to do was trying to make himself not seem as important as he is to the movement. Because you see, in reality, a lot of the movements that we've had to in our history all follow very specific people. And once those people are gone, yes, the idea still continues, but we still associate that idea with that person. You know, if you go anywhere and say, I have a dream, it's like, that's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You know what I mean? It's not going to be something that's like, oh wow, you really just came up with that one sentence. Wow, that's amazing. I'm rooting for you. It's like, no, we get the ideas from the person, but the person is the form which the idea is communicated. You need that person, you need that power, you need that ability to speak the idea
Mm.
and share it. So it's not, I think V just, I think he had his own like identity crisis because of what happened to him. So it was
Identity
very
crisis. I,
but I think he put so much effort into the idea because he didn't want to have to connect with anyone. He was like okay with being a martyr until later on when it seemed
mm,
like he wasn't okay
that's
with that
true because
anymore.
he, yes, I think he did put himself as like an idea first, but along the movie, because he meets Evie, he does slowly become a person in not just to us, I feel like to himself. Like he
Hmm.
actually says that by the end when he never thought that he would kind of feel this way or something with her.
I think he said he never thought that he could have a life after his
Mm,
plan, and
mm,
Evie sort of showed him that there was more than just revenge. And there's a line when they're talking about the Count of Monte Cristo where
Mhm.
she says that she finds it sad for is the name Evelyn or something like that? The woman that falls in love with the Count. And she
Mhm.
says, well, he loved revenge more than he loved her. And then
Yeah.
you see a scene of V, and you could tell, even though you can't see his face, it's like pondering, like, huh,
Ponder. Oh, that was it.
ponder.
That love story was really cute. But let's go back to how we got introduced to V. Like
Hmm.
to the nation, to us that we kind of how did you feel when you first saw him? Because we didn't actually know his backstory too. We just know that he was going against the dictatorship. But imagine if you were one of those people that were like stuck on his
Right.
screen. Like the media basically tried to like villainize him.
When you just see
And
him like speaking to us.
yeah. And discredit him in
Well,
some ways, right?
so when I was watching it, and over the course of time, I've watched it 10 or 15 times.
Mm.
Um, the speech starts, you start to listen to the speech more and hear what he's saying. And he says something along the lines of, you know, if you want to put the blame on someone, you need only look in the mirror.
Mm.
So he's what I when I see that character, I see someone who's like relating to people who feel as he feels, It's like if you bleed as I bleed, he's one of the people who have been wronged, and he's trying to say like, "Hey, wake up." And I think if he had spoken in a different way or a different tone or anything else, they would have been able to easily villainize him. But his words hit something deep in the people that the government couldn't get rid of. Because I think what they were trying to do is use that same tactic as always and make the people fear V rather than hear his message, which is the first thing that they tried to do, which was saying that the terrorist had been killed, which was on their bad at the beginning, because they took that video and put it on the news and said that he was dead, but then he keeps coming back. So they're starting to sort of facilitate this distrust of the media. You know
Mm.
what I mean? They start,
True. It backfires on
their
them.
fear doesn't work.
Yeah.
So um, I feel like the people don't learn quickly enough that they can't trust the media, because they're still constantly like listening and listening and listening until you start seeing those scenes where the places are cleared out, no one's watching, and that's when you see everyone on the street like taking arms and wearing the masks. But I guess it's so ingrained in them that they need the information and need the truth from the government that they
Mhm.
can't break away as fast as they need to.
What is interesting too is like when I guess you can see the girl in the glasses, the kid in the
Hmm.
glasses. You could see basically saying like when she got the mask, she went out and started to like spray paint stuff, and then she really felt compelled. I feel like that's really something that's interesting because it really shows that youths, like people that are younger, they really take things to heart and they really go for action. And then whereas when we see the kid kind of getting basically beat up or like murdered by accident by
Hmm.
a like official of the
Fingerman.
state, a fingerman, um, that then the outrages spread towards the adults because the adults
Yeah.
finally see firsthand what they were fearing to lose in the beginning, right?
Hmm.
Like their family
Because,
members.
I guess at some point the government is constantly saying, if you don't listen to us, this is what can happen. Your
Mm-hmm.
children will get murdered, we're going to have another war and all these things. But then you realize, wait, no, this person who's like a person of the government ended up killing one of these kids. So where does that leave us? So if we can't trust the government and they're going to murder our children, obviously there's a problem here. So you mentioned something about chaos and the chaoticism of people. And I
Yes.
think what happens at the beginning of the movie is that you see when the high chancellor takes power is that the world is in chaos and he offers a solution, which is always what these dictators do. The same with Trump. All the immigrants are taking your jobs, all these people are out here ruining the country. I'm here to make America great again. You see all these black people, well, they should be back in their little hoods and all these things. And as soon as the virus came, who did he scapegoat? He scapegoated Chinese people, the Chinese flu, the Wuhan flu.
Mm,
So they take advantage of this chaos to create fear. And I feel as though there's all these stories happen, and then the government and the media contextualizes this either as a thing to fear or a thing to not be worried about. So I just I'm not sure what that says about where we are now, but it feels very similar to this movie, way too similar. Um,
mhm.
and what I find interesting is how cohesive all the problems are. It all centers around these like 6 or 7 people, which has to happen for a movie because it can't be the whole world that's fucked up.
Mhm.
But
But
I
when you
guess,
think about it, in let's say the government, especially since Trump like fired everybody and there's only like a few key players, you really can kind of establish
mhm,
it's kind of like a movie because he always uses like that, what is it, executive order. So like when you kind of contextualize it in the real
mhm,
life, I think it does come down to like key figures that you can kind of pinpoint.
it definitely does. But I think what happens is that it's it's specific decisions
Hmm.
and different parts, but the, the different parts go back like I guess it is like the movie, like 40 years. Because when we watched Black Klansman, remember how they were talking about getting a politician who
Mm,
into the government
hmm.
who basically espoused their ideals of the Klan, and now we have Trump.
Hmm.
So I guess we're living in V for Vendetta. I was gonna say, like, how do these things present themselves in real life? And I'm just like, here it is.
Okay, but in the movie, we as the viewer, like we're not able to like connect all these dots. So how we connect the dot as the viewers was by the detective, right? So he
Yeah.
in the beginning kind of well, he's a detective, so he works for the state, so he trusts the states and he obviously believes in his government. And
Hmm.
it's interesting to see his point of view because he slowly starts to like investigate and get roadblocks. And then so he finally decides to kind of look into it further, even without the permission of his superiors. And then we can see him uncovering things, even talking about it to his colleagues.
Hmm.
And at a certain point, he finally meets V. And then V says he's been waiting for him. So it's
Hmm.
like a odd kind of was it? Hmm.
I mean, there are no coincidences, but V needed that person who was part of the government to be the, I guess, would end up being the whistleblower,
Hmm.
because V is there just to wake up the people and to say that this story is happening. And I think I don't know if he took out the people who were there in order to shut shut down their ability to make other claims, or
Hmm.
he did that to show like these are the people that wronged us, these they deserve to die. Because I feel like if those people had lived there, nothing would have actually happened to them if
Hmm.
V hadn't murdered them, or if V had
Because they're
given some
protected.
sort of,
They're protected by
yeah,
the government and protected by
non-disclosure
and
forms and all
yeah,
that good stuff.
non-disclosure.
um but there's I think the detective was a necessary character in
Mhm.
order to connect all the dots. I don't think I don't know if I would have believed V, like his entire story, if the detective hadn't gone around and set and looked for the story and found all these roadblocks. Because I
Mhm.
think that's what solidifies it, that okay, this really did happen and nobody wants to talk about it.
I think yes, the detective really, in a way, humanized V from an outside point because V, he's such a
Hmm.
weirdo, and we can never see his face. And he did like an awful thing to Evie, and so you really don't know where he stands psychologically and if he's like
Right.
100% there because he throughout
The ends justify the means for him.
yeah, and because he takes revenge and he basically goes on a killing spree. So for us, we're kind of like, oh, we like him, but we're not sure.
I know. Can we trust him? I mean,
Yeah,
he's a
in
the
his
big
scenes,
T.
yeah, in his scenes we see him killing, but in the detective scenes we see detective uncovering the truth behind why he's killing these people.
And the suffering and all those.
Yes.
Ugh.
And the suffering that they caused.
hmm For and the worst part is that it was for political gain. Again, it was supposed to be able to use bio warfare. That's what the
Mm,
scene with the doctor was talking about, where she said it doesn't matter if you can leave a country's wealth intact if the people are all dying, I think, or something like that. And that's why they were developing this sort of virus
mm.
to wipe out the people. It's awful.
It was, I guess it's like in their backhand of always being able to have something over the people. Like if something arises, they can always try to cause another chaos, and then so the chancellor has a chance to like say you need us, right? That's what he kept repeating.
Mhm.
He's like, let's remind the people why they need us to like
Mhm.
bulldoze them over.
Why we are here.
Yeah, use force. I thought that was like super interesting that he was also easily very much killed.
I know, not only that, but he was so easily angered when
Mm.
that show came out about him as a joke, and he was just so put off by it that he had to have that man murdered. I can't remember his name. Gordon?
I don't,
Gordon.
maybe. But he was played by, oh my
Mm.
god, I forgot the actor.
I was like,
Stephen
don't do it,
Fry.
you're not gonna remember it.
Stephen Fry.
Yes.
I remember the name, not the character's name. Represent well,
But
even the detective. Let's say he in real life he kind of reflects journalists, right? Is he's the one that's
mhm,
putting clues together. So in real life, we're talking about journalists who put things together, and even Gordon was it a guy that's on the talk show, and he has certain control
mhm,
of his show and media. So it's basically the media people that try to like maybe like satire a little bit like the government and kind of like poke holes into their image, and especially like journalists that actually do
mhm.
jobs in real life. So these people in our world are like in danger. We can like hear about it all the time.
Right. But I find it interesting that people like Trevor Noah or Stephen Colbert, and there's the other British man that I never
John
remember his name,
Oliver.
John Oliver. Um, they kind of do that.
Mm,
They kind of do what Stephen Fry's character did with those skits and everything. But for us, it doesn't, it doesn't seem as dangerous
mm-hmm,
because, or at least in the States, it doesn't seem as dangerous because we have our First Amendment right to be able to speak against the government and all that stuff.
mm-hmm.
Um, but the the stakes were so much higher in V for Vendetta because you know that he could get killed for what he
Yeah.
did, and I don't think the they mentioned in the movie that he wasn't going to be murdered until they found the Quran in his home.
Yes.
He was just going to
Yes.
be tortured and detained, but because you had
Just
all that
tortured and
stuff,
detained. Yeah.
yes, but or sanctioned, but they found all that other stuff. So
Mm.
bye bye to him, unfortunately. This
Let's talk
and
about the last scene where it's like this is something lighter because it's funny. Me and you both we thought like what is happening? The scene
so
where
V
yeah, go explain it.
so V ends up after fighting against the leader of the Fingermen and all those people, he ends up walking out, drops his armor, which was full of bullets, and walks back to Evie, basically on his last legs. And so Evie kisses him, they talk, he tells her how he would have loved to live with her, but he can't. And then it cuts to the next scene where you see Evie holding the train thing, and you see V inside the car, perfectly placed,
Like a buffet.
just like and roses all around. And Linda and I were thinking, how did she lift him? How long has it been since her torture? She doesn't look like she put on that much weight or muscle since then. So
Yeah,
unrealistic
and then
standards
V
and
gave you
expectations.
yeah, V gave you like a very like what is it, hard decision of like either you blow up the parliament because you're the future or not. Like,
I give you this idea. I give
yeah,
you this.
this power.
Bruh.
And then she goes, I guess somehow she goes and orders or like goes and picks up like 50 roses and then like has time to plate it around him.
I mean, what is this Instagram post? Hashtag martyr. Like, no.
Hashtag Bay with Bay. With Bay. Revolution
Goodness.
time, y'all. Get ready. Get ready for YouTube live stream.
YouTube live stream of Parliament blowing up. Don't
I
forget to
know.
like and subscribe.
Oh, that's sad.
My
But you
favorite
had also
world.
like mentioned that like was it necessary for V to die at the end?
So so I do think that it was necessary for him to die. Uh, the only thing was that I did notice that he wanted to live
Mm.
at the end. I don't think he expected, because that's why he was wearing the bulletproof vest, because he was trying to survive to live with Evie. But I think he knew at that point that he was going to die and just accepted it. He did have some regrets. But I think overall in the plot, I think he did have to die, um, because it's not his world to decide over. I think if he had continued living, maybe they would have wanted him to be in power or something like that. But
Yeah.
I don't think that's what he wanted. He wanted to give power to the people.
Yeah.
He didn't want them to need another leader. He wanted them to think for themselves, which is like that whole nonconformity and questioning and all those things.
Which is why he also killed
Um,
the second in command.
exactly.
Once as the audience we saw like people take power, like they all march to the parliament with like the mask, and we see the transformation in Evie and even the detective finally seeing the truth.
Yeah,
It's like him passing on the power. You know,
exactly.
it's then it really goes back to like the comments that he made, the speech he made in the beginning, where it's like the idea is bigger than the man. It's like the idea that lives on after him.
Right.
However, me and you, we really wanted him to be with Evie and that tree. I don't even know what that tree represented, but
Do you remember I don't know if you would have noticed it from the first time watching, but
Mm.
there's a scene where the detective starts talking about how you can see everything that happened, everything that's going to happen. And there's a scene with Evie as she's like walking away from a mirror and someone's sitting in the background. And I don't remember if it's the detective or if it's like a V character. So I don't know if she's supposed to end up with the detective later on. But if you watch it again, look for
Yes,
it.
we'll see. But I remember that scene where in the middle, I think was it he I think he starts to have feelings for her, and then I think was it he took the mask and smashed it on the mirror or something after she left.
Yeah.
I was like,
Mhm.
heartbreak.
After torturing her.
That was really weird because
It's like,
he
oh,
I know, because he's such a weird character. You can see so much facades of him. Like he plays swords with like like inanimate like armor. He
he's making
appreciates
eggs and toast with
yeah.
girl from Ipanema. Like, he's cultured, but he's
No,
tortured, you know?
he has art and like he's a nerd and he like quotes he quotes what is it? All the like
Shakespeare and
Shake-
12th Nine and
yeah. And then she also knows these things.
just so deep. Oh
So
gosh.
deep.
It
So
reminds me of all the art school boys that broke my heart.
did they quote Macbeth to you while they like
I never
rejected
talked to
you
them.
or
I saw
something?
them from afar.
Oh, so you rejected yourself in your own mind for them. Oh no. But can you imagine if they actually like ended up together? That'd be such a weird movie. The
I
thing for me
think
it was funny too, that rose scene and the fact that he stumbles back to the metro and Evie didn't expect that he would come back. I think once he left it was so dramatic
oh,
and
that's true.
that she was supposed to decide. And then he suddenly comes back. He's like, and like from the
V.
subway, I'm like, what the hell? I thought that he would actually die a more like sad death where he doesn't get
Mhm.
Evie, and he would just die there, and the Evie maybe finds her later. But he comes back and she lays a buffet around him.
The bouquet buffet.
Yeah.
I think if Evie and him had gotten together, I think there would have been a lot. if there was like a V for Vendetta, like Love Island
Oh my
love
god.
story, I think there would be a lot of trauma that V would have to go through, especially letting her see him,
Yeah, I don't think
with that, because he puts on the gloves and
oh,
everything
yes.
because he's all burned.
Yeah.
So
Alright, now we're just going off topic, but now just imagining them being all weird and, like, into this love story that can never
our own problematic love story.
yes. But final thoughts on the story, on the movie. I definitely loved it, and I like there's so many different layers of the story and different characters that they developed really well. And this underlying like love story between them really like made it more sweet. And the fact that they
Mhm.
were able to do it without ever seeing the main character, and they only had one kiss on the mouth. Although they had a very dubious like courtship in the middle.
I know. I don't know if they got feelings for each other during the torture scene or before, but honestly, yo. But I would definitely, I mean, I've watched this movie like so many times. I think it's just a classic movie that makes me constantly reminds me to question and think and not take everything at face value, especially when it comes to politics, and to always not remain a nonconformist and just be a devil's advocate to everything, but always ask questions. Never take anything just at face value.
Yeah. Honestly,
So I
I think it
definitely
is
would
a
watch
really,
again.
really good movie to recommend to people in general. But as a kid, like when you watch it, I feel like that's a very good defining age to watch this movie. It's like watch it, think for yourself, like don't just be seeing the mirage and kind of get
Exactly. And
lost.
I also, if we were to ever talk about the soundtrack of the movie, I think
Mhm.
that changed how the movie worked, because I was just thinking about how one of those movies usually has like really hard rock or action film
Oh
music,
yeah.
but it's a lot softer, so you don't really, so it's a lot of classical music. But we could talk about that in another thing. And I think that changes the way you perceive V.
Well, we can
'Cause
talk
he's
about
a
it now. I mean, we've got our main topics done. Whoever's still left watching can listen to whatever we're talking now, talking about now. I thought that was funny. The fact that like the chancellor could actually censor music. And he was
Mhm.
like, not to play that one, and that was like a big classic.
I never want to hear that again.
Never. He's such a kid.
And it was
So
the
temperamental. I wonder who that is.
overture of 1812, right? That's what it was, by Tchaikovsky. I think that's the one it was, because Tchaikovsky was also gay, which the chancellor hated gay people and
Well,
had them
yeah,
murdered.
he like experimented on them on purpose.
Exactly. So maybe that's another layer to it. I don't know. But I think if they had gone any other route with the music,
Mm.
it would have definitely had a different feel to the movie. Because I think about, I don't watch too many action films, but I remember just scenes in like Fight Club. It's always like this hard rock. And what I also think is interesting is that V isn't like toxically masculine. I don't want, you know what I mean? He's very, I think there are certain parts where he feels like he needs to take everything under his own belt and do everything by himself.
Hmm.
But there's also this aspect of him that loves art and loves cooking and has this free artistic spirit that most
Heroes.
cartoon or most I was going to say cartoon characters, most heroes
um,
in movies, most male heroes wouldn't necessarily do.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's very vulnerable with Evie, I think.
Hmm. Yes, he's like a very flamboyantly like just an oddball character.
Yeah,
I think
like
that
the person
because
he would have been had he not been experimented on.
yeah, it would have been like, oh, that weirdo by the corner, or like that hipster or something.
He would have, I think he would have definitely been an artist. And I also, I feel like there's that sad aspect of that, the fact that he doesn't know who he was. So is this the
Mm.
person that came, the way that he needed to express the torture that he went through afterwards? Does he even remember that? Well, yes, he does, because he has this whole plot. But is this is it something so deep seated inside of him that it's the
Mm,
person he was before?
true. Yeah, he doesn't remember who he was before. All he remembers is the torture, right? I think.
Yeah, because of I think the medicine that they were giving him, or the because he was one of the last people to actually uh, deal with all the um, experimentations, and that's why he chose the letter V on his cell as
Mhm.
his name because he was the last one.
Or probably, or imagine as like the, I guess the writer that wrote the graphic novel, or like the director, and everything that came to like thinking about a character that doesn't know about himself or herself. How would they discover the world? Like it would have to be through like historic records of humanity, I guess, right? So he found
Mhm.
classical music, or just music, art, and he stole a lot of art.
Yeah, and it was all censored
Even
art
butter,
too.
she stole butter.
And when you learn about how expensive butter used to be, and
Mm.
the different commodities that they do have and things like that, it's it shows that he has this deep understanding of very tiny parts of history. Um, and I think that's so important in making his character, just
Mm.
because without all those nice tidbits, you wouldn't see how well-rounded he is and that he
And it
has
also,
interests other than revenge.
it took him 15 years
Yeah,
to plot this whole thing and to be a person, I would think.
yeah.
Because you come out like a crazy, he was a flaming man, naked man. Just ah, that was enough. Ah.
I just every time I watch a movie where there's some sort of torture element or experimentation, I
Mhm.
just feel so I feel so deeply for the character because there's no way to get over that. And that's why I
Oh,
usually
we
don't
can talk
watch those
about the,
movies.
what is it, the scene where Evie reads the letter that was
Oh
like
yeah.
my heart.
Oh,
What did you think
and you
about that?
see the you just and then you see the doctor talks about those people, you see her pass by that woman, but the doctor talks about how she hates them sometimes. I wish they knew what they were how they were helping people, and it's just like, you're creating a virus
You're
and you're
murdering them. Why would,
experimenting on
yeah,
people. Why would they be happy?
why would they give you
And
a
it
smile? You capture them out of their lives. And then we saw the
ugh,
backstory of like a woman that was, what was her name? Valerie? Was it Valerie? No.
does he say her name?
Yes. I think her name was Valerie. No, something. Oh no.
Maybe.
Oh no, we forgot.
God damn it.
God damn it.
Um, but when Evie reads that story, I I think there's this strength that she gains from her, but I also sort of think that there's this I don't know if the story is necessary. I know that it gets her through the torture and
Mm.
everything, but I don't know how do you think she would have been able to go through that torture that V was putting her through without that story?
I think, I don't even think that that was like maybe for her. I think it was more for us as audiences, because we saw these test subjects just getting murdered, like just
Yeah.
being test subjects, like you said, like the doctor saw them as trash, kind of like people that were undeserving to like live, and they would better benefit the world if they sacrificed their own lives to like testing.
Mhm.
So like I think it was more for us. I'm like, wow, that the way they edited it, the woman's life together with her partner, and how she discovered love through like different trials of her life, like she first got rejected from her parents because she's a lesbian, and then it wasn't a phase for her compared to like, she actually, it's so interesting how they were able to cram the whole story into like one letter form,
Mhm.
and then how it that affected us, the viewer, and Evie. And I guess
Right.
now we know how that affected also V, because she
Right.
was a part of his strength too, to get through it.
Right, and she was right next to him.
Yeah, and she died and he didn't.
Yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder what's happening to people in the world because even
There are a lot of political prisoners and like people that we just don't know about. But
yeah,
are out there, and we obviously feel a little bit helpless, like we can't do anything for
What
them.
do you do? Because you kind of value your life to not be one of those people, and how do you help them without becoming one of those people that ends up a political prisoner?
Yeah, I
There's
think that's the point of the movie is also that there are going to be people that are forced into this situation without them wanting to be. Like this woman,
Mhm.
Evie, all of them, they didn't want to be in this position, but when life kind of takes you there, I think you have to either be strong or collapse, I guess, right? Which actually in this movie they're saying like you only have one choice to but to be strong, I think.
Yeah, I think if you want to be able to live your life without regrets and without feeling like you've forgotten other people,
Mm-hmm.
you need to stand up and not pretend to be asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how Evie lasted so long ignoring what had happened to her parents.
I think she lived a safe life after what happened. It's
She
kind of like
also went into she also went into government home placement or something. So maybe there was also some sort of propaganda or
mm,
brainwashing that occurred because she said her parents became political, and it
mhm.
was almost as if, her parents became political, not
Yeah, she
her.
didn't
Like
like
she's
she
never
didn't
been.
yeah, it wasn't her
Yeah,
choice. Well, when she was a kid, obviously it wasn't her choice, but she saw that as like a demise of their family in the beginning. She was
yeah,
saying they became
exactly.
political, and that's why like it started to break apart. But it wasn't because of
And
that. It started before that long ago, right? Because
but I
virus
because
got
the
this.
mom wanted to leave
Mm.
because things were getting bad, but the dad wanted to stay and protest.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Which you can basically see it's how humans react in terms of like our
fight or flight.
yeah.
Because maybe they could have done a lot of good away from England or Britain, you
Where
know?
would they have gone? Yeah, they didn't actually say like what other countries nearby were doing, but
They just kind of juxtapose it between the United States and England.
yeah, in the United States was like total chaos, like Mad Max maybe style, versus like the safe dictatorship in the UK. Maybe the French
Yeah.
people were still, still nonchalant, chilling.
I mean, they probably had already murdered their dictator because they're always protesting?
They're still outside protesting. That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
All right, so this concludes our episode today. Actually, when I edit, I don't know if I'm gonna put you on this side or that side. So we probably need to figure out which side we're doing this at eventually.
Eventually, we'll see.
Eventually.
Whatever. I mean, even if we're facing each other, it'll be fine.
True.
We should be facing away, but copyright,
Okay, we'll do it upside down.
Yeah, sounds good. Make sure they can't F with us.
All right. Should I stop recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, we forgot to say our outro. We don't have one. It's been 2 months, Vicky.
Oh.
Technically, we haven't decided. You know what?
Okay,
We're gonna.
yeah,
we're gonna need an outro.
we should just film an intro and an outro,
and slap it on.
or even exactly.
My God, we're sloppy.
It's 2 months.
It's been 2 months.
There are people whose intros are the fact that they don't have intros, so we're fine.
Technically, that's us right now. Branded, spontaneous because so
Authentic chaos.
Authentic. Okay, like and subscribe. Follow us if you want on our Instagram.
Oh shit! It was still recording.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Because we didn't have a proper outro. My God. Don't worry, I'll put our links up before this. But anyways, okay, bye. See you next time. Tell us what you want us to watch, and we'll take it into consideration. Probably.
We won't do it.
We will never do it.
No, fuck your suggestions. That's it.
Bye.
Bye.